out, you would be paying. It was crazy.
It was like $250 for like an appointment, and they're just doing them all off the books. And then that guy retires after like 10 months of working.
I mean,
it's kind of like COVID test. It's like COVID test.
I mean, my very first dispensaries, we were booking out doctors 2 or 3 nights a week because we needed patients because we wanted to have these big warehouses. I mean, these doctors would sit there for, it was, total rubber stamp. They'd sit there for 2 hours and they'd make like $3,000 and or more than that. It was so insane. And they'd come multiple times a week and they were like, "Oh, you talk to the doctors. We all quit our normal practice. We're just doing cannabis scripts." I'm like, "You think? You're going to 5 of these in one day. I can do the math on that." We were all in the wrong field. But, it really morphed into its own rule and its own industry where, pretty soon it just, they had to regulate it. And, they came up with rules. But you didn't ask me about the industry. You asked me about myself. I always started in cultivation.
It was a fun little tangent.
So I have to
go with it, dude. You're more entertaining than I am. No one's here to listen to me. They want to hear you. So go on as many tangents as you want.
You're too kind. I think right after that, the industry became so big that, they had to regulate it, like I said. And I wanted to be in here. I loved plants. I had been in my previous career. I had been in sales and worked with people a lot and worked on the phones. And this was a relief for my last 5 or 6 years of work coming to a warehouse. And I dug myself in. I actually started cultivating initially with the clinic. Before it was called the clinic, they were called Rocky Mountain Cannabis or Cannabis of the Rocky Mountain. I can't even remember now. But
the good old days.
The good old days. We had their very first grow right actually down the street from here, which is I think now where they have their lab. And I remember building that place up, and we did it. It took us forever to get going and learn it, and there was a lot of failure with it, but we learned, and I personally fell in love with it. It was tedious and it was a lot of work, but I still my initial partners were, guys that had been doing it in the mountains in Boulder for a long time, and they had a very labor-intensive way of doing it. And
I thought you were just describing Weiss for a second. I wasn't sure.
What'd you say? What?
A buddy of mine named Adam Weiss. That's who I thought you were talking about. I was like, time out. I know him. He went from the mountains to the Boulder, and then I just thought of you. And
that's a lot of people.
It's John.
I mean, honestly, that's a lot of people. I mean, it was. Again, how this industry started. I mean, one of my, actually I own a few stores called Higher Grade, but the store originally came from Boulder. It was called High Grade. And in Boulder, when High Grade opened its doors, I think in like 2011, you were able to get weed from the mountains of Nederland, the hills of Boulder. There was no manifest, there was no cameras. It was just, if you have this random paperwork that your lawyer printed out, you can bring it, even if you don't have it, bring it next time, kind of thing. And but the best part about it, which you can't really emulate again, is you were able to get all this weed from all these individual growers. I mean, you could have 60 guys from their basement come into your store at any given day and sell you weed, and it was all amazing because they're all growing one strain and they're specializing in it.
Get all your Blue Dream or your GDP and just get everybody's whole truckload.
I miss the lineup of those days. I'll say that. Not that we're not doing an amazing job, but it was so unique and different. I mean, it was a free for all. It was fun. It was a lot less stressful in some ways.
I mean, we've come a long way, and I think I was talking with someone the other day, and we kind of discussed it on the walk earlier that y'all are very tightly regulated and monitored in every aspect, from the seeds all the way to sale. And so when you do, I mean, like you mentioned, y'all are wholesalers, but you have 65,000 square feet. You have 150 plus fucking workers. I mean, this is a full-blown Amazon-style herb operation. How did we get from the beginning of rec to the powerhouses that y'all are? And that doesn't have to be specific.
More of a Whole Foods operation than an Amazon
there
operation.
We go. Yeah. What an idiot, Kip.
Come on, Kip.
The right part of Amazon. Come on.
How do we get there? I'll let our head of marketing and sales take that.
Low and slow. But this was a long grind. This, from the beginning, Mike has emphasized quality over everything. And when at the beginning it was 3 or when I got involved, I came on later. I wasn't part of the original beginning crew, but I came in 2014 when I moved here from Vegas, and the first thing that Mike cared about, it was never about just marketing to try and sell things because it was marketing. This is quality product. This is love, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that goes into it, and the people who work in these warehouses love this plant, and they've dedicated their life to getting the best out of it. Mike's dedicated his life to get the best out of it. We've got a grow style that we think works, and we've just built slowly. We like literally started off by going and knocking on doors and talking to people about carrying our brand of cannabis. And they're like, what do you mean your brand of cannabis? It's cannabis. And so we're like, no, it's important to us that people know who is grown by and that they know there's consistency, and it just grew. I mean, every 4 or 5 months, Mike's like, I found this facility, or I got an idea. So it started by doubling the other facility.
So y'all are kind of like Callahan Auto Parts. Like, people are buying the box, like the trusted Veritas box. Was that not a great analogy?
It's a great analogy.
Okay, I'm glad that didn't land on deaf ears. Because had that, we'd have just wrapped the rest of this episode.
Hey guys, it was a lot of fun. Thanks.
Yeah. If y'all just looked at me like, y'all haven't seen Tommy Boy.
But so here's a good analogy. Think of the annoying girl at Whole Foods when you you need like some aromatherapy or something. You're like, for me, I don't shop for that stuff a lot, but occasionally if you do.
I don't know where you pulled that out of. Let's say you're going to Whole Foods.
If you go into that section, and I'm thinking of a Boulder Whole Foods too, like a really hippie one, right? And you have one question, but it turns into a 2-hour conversation because they have so much knowledge. Unfortunately, that's what can happen when you tour here sometimes too, or at least what we're going for in people that care that much to a level of annoyance, that are super passionate about it. I mean, you caught a glimpse of that conversation when we were talking about touring somebody and how proud they were that someone's smoking their weed. I mean, that's kind of, what I think makes someone successful here, at least someone that works here for more than a few months, is that it can't be just about a paycheck. It's too much work and it's hard. You have to really want it to work. You have to like it. You have to love it. And that's always been my vice. I'm a huge pothead. I've been smoking weed every day for a really as long as I can remember.
He gives us hope. You see how sprightly?
Yeah.
And he remembers things?
Keep going. We'll see.
I mean, it gives me hope as someone that also gets high.
I think like if you own a restaurant and you're a head chef of that restaurant, you're cooking with your heart. This is no different.
I dig it. Well, let's talk a little bit about it. You mentioned, a lot of these different products, and some of these, everybody brought in their own specific kind. What do we have going in here today, and what's the dumbest name that y'all have growing in there?
I don't know about the dumbest name. We had at one point we launched 2 new strains, right? So we had Yuck Mouth was right next to Poontang Pie, and it just happened that the first time we popped those products, and we're bringing them in.
You said pop as well.
They're next to each other. The Yuck
Pop
Mouth
the
was right next to the
Poontang
Poontang Pie. So that was probably.
That's what he's doing. Sorry, I didn't.
Sorry, that was like my whole script. That's as good as it gets. I worked on that really hard for you.
And we just fucked in and just dunked.
I'm glad you like good softball though.
Yeah, thank you. I like it. Well, y'all have also done some, outside of the names, y'all are producing some great weed for specific companies. Some when we were doing the tour, you mentioned, and we're big name droppers. You said Little Baby was, prideful in smoking the Doja. And I feel like y'all now are possibly the most recognizable brand in Colorado because of their sister company in California. Y'all are the cookies growers as well.
Yeah, when Cookies was coming to Colorado, they spoke to us for a long time, and they had talked about their awareness of how well Colorado understands weed. And that Colorado is typically not a state that just goes through and says, yeah, we love it, it's great everywhere else, let's bring it in. So they took a lot of time. They found our products, and the relationship's good. They appreciate quality, and they've built a phenomenal brand. And yeah, Cookies has been a very great addition to the product line here. They're good people, and it's good weed, and it's very different than what we grow. So it's been a win.
And it seems like y'all are turning plants and harvests on the daily, but y'all have done something that the average bear isn't doing. Because if you go into the regular dispensary, just your run-of-the-mill neighborhood shop, and you get one of those pre-weighed 8s, there's a 50-50 chance that you're getting just shit weed. But y'all have these already labeled, herbivore, and it's just fire, and it's consistent every time. And I'm just curious, how, as someone that's tried the home grow, we were talking about the home grow earlier, Trevor and I, where's the method, and where's the madness? I'm curious how you've made this all tick. It's like a fine, well-oiled machine. And it's
thank you for the kind words. I mean, that's not to sound too corny, but that's the cheese and the love that goes into this. I mean, it takes, I've always said it's easy to grow weed. It's hard to grow good weed. And so to the credit of to the staff that does it, they're passionate about it. We have a plan. I mean, we are well managed in order to do that, and we work hard for it. It's not easy. I mean, I think that you have an industry in Colorado where in the beginning everybody got involved. It was a gold rush, right? And so most of the people that were intelligent enough to sign, a lease for a nice retail store in a good area, and they could have foot traffic to their stores, especially in, think of Aurora or, somewhere else that has a limited license, right? You have to have a lot of acumen to be able to get a license in those areas. But that doesn't have anything to do with cannabis cultivation itself. I don't think there's a lot of companies that, the owner's a cultivator, and so that's an advantage we've had is that, this was our bread and butter was cultivation versus
being a business.
Being a business first.
Yeah.
We formed a company that had, some of our other partners that are owners in this company were, just came from the business world. So that combination has really set us up, not just having, white collar business guys running this like a commodity. We understand the cultivation left, right, front, and center first, and that's because that's put on a pedestal while decisions are made, right? And we put that first, and then everything else falls in. So
I like it. And so y'all are now. Let's say that y'all are. I'm not going to give y'all a big head because I'm going to bring y'all down a peg or two too. I have some hard hitters.
Good.
Yeah, but let's say that you've eclipsed. You're at the top of the flower mountain. You're killing it and slaying it. What's next, y'all? I mean, you see that some of these companies start expanding into new markets, and marijuana's gone 7 million different ways these days. What's next on the docket for you guys? Holy shit! I said you guys. Not
you
y'all.
Guys, not y'all. There you go. You're almost a native now.
Jesus, I'm going to have to get a Subaru and a sticker.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think, what's next for us, the first thing and the most important thing is keeping the main thing the main thing. Mm-hmm. And, in order to keep this level of quality and this level of dedication, Mike spoke about the passion. That goes through the entire organization. The team that does packaging, they are phenomenal at it, and they care, and they consider themselves to be the most important part of the quality control piece. So I think the first and most important goal we have is maintaining that level of consistency, because I think that's why people like us. They understand what they're going to get. They understand the flavor is going to be great. They understand that, maybe the strain's not for them, but the care was put into it, and that something else will be. And that's, I think, an important part. Outside of that, I think it's how do we have more fun with it? How do we figure out, we're doing a pheno hunt, which is we're trying to bring the public into our process of how we select a strain. So, most people don't understand, but commercially you start growing a strain and you'll grow multiple phenos and figure out what's the best. And we, with LA Kush Cake, found a bunch of winners. So we're asking the public to get involved in it. We want people to see that the siblings are different. And so I think that for us, how do we connect with our consumers? How do we go through and make sure that they participate and see that this is a couple of guys that love weed. There's a bunch of guys and girls that love weed. What they love.
That's well said, and he's exactly right. And I think that a lot of our ambitions were changed because of COVID, obviously. And John is the head of marketing for us, and basically he rewrote his script in mid-March when everything changed. We were trying to be really active with events, and
we had some amazing plans.
Amazing plans, of course. That everything got basically everything in 2020 is punted till there's a vaccine till next year, hopefully. So that's of course.
I mean, I see y'all's excitement on y'all's faces.
Oh God, we had the coolest stuff planned.
God damn it,
a cool answer. No, but it's a good year to grow, and like we said. But I think it gives us more time to plan. We're always so rushed doing things, but I think a fun goal for Veritas next would be the hospitality sector. As soon as Denver, specifically in Colorado, clears up their rules for that and allows it to be more of an industry, we would love to participate in that. To bring the experience of what we do here, to cafes and bars, and I envision Rhino one day walking down the street, and you can go to a brewery and have your beer, and then you go next door and you're in a weed lounge, right? Or maybe it's combined. I don't know. That's really wishful thinking, one step at a time. But at least having the option, if you're hanging out and you're walking with your friends on a Friday night, and you can
dip in and
dip out and support these businesses. And I think I actually don't think it's that far away. I mean, it's been far away for a long time, but eventually you have to allow consumption and culture to come into this. This just can't be underground forever. So I think the culture aspect is really what's next. There's enough weed probably being grown that for us as a business, we want to participate more in the culture of it.
I fucking love that, because usually you hear someone that's like, let's dip our toe into so and so market. Like we've got our hands steady. Like let's go into wax or whatever. Yeah. I like how this is the angle. You're thinking more about how will Kip be more stoked to smoke your product, and that's a fucking genius concept, guys. I like that enthusiasm. I'm stoked.
It's a cool time. Consumers this is like the microbrew scene back when Mike and I were in college and we dated ourselves. Back then.
Is that where y'all met, by the way?
No, actually, he was 1 year younger than me. We both went to Boulder. We didn't meet till we got involved with this company. But back in those days, it was cool. Like the microbrews were like the small thing. It was like a culture to know the guy that was brewing, and a lot of them were bad and a lot of them were good, and it's kind of like that connection. I see that there's a lot of parallels to the industry.
And that was one thing I was going to ask is what did you see next for the industry going forward? You know, we've seen things like Oklahoma just went medicinal, and they're just generating cash, like just printing it over there, you know, in all aspects. And so we have
Mississippi just passed medical, right?
I don't believe so, but that would be
on the ballot or something?
It's on the ballot.
Okay, I read something about Mississippi and weed. I couldn't believe it.
I would love to see it, but we still have half of our state is dry from